Etihihi. Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon. Um, how are y'all? Happy Wait, happy Wednesday. What? What? Happy Monday. Oh my gosh. Happy Wednesday. It's wild. Obviously, I don't know where we are in time and space, which is why I wanted to come on live and help all of you orient into time and space. So, Um, welcome to my channel. My name is Winter, also known as Mixed Mercury, also known as the Astro Himbo. And we're here for a little week ahead forecast, transit chat, card pull, mixing it up. I'm going to try. I tried to skip over Tuesday. You know what I mean? I'm going to try to hold this to 30 to 45 minutes, mostly because I want to be succinct and direct. I just need to practice that. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, oh well. But I have two things that I want to do. One is cover just the astrology of the week. What major transits do we have going on? Just kind of what's ahead. And then I want to pull some cards to get a little insight because let's be honest, election day is tomorrow in the States, and it's a very stressful time for a number of reasons. Not that the outcome of the election makes that any less stressful, but it also kind of does. So I just want to know, like, what are we in for this week? We'll do it 1 week at a time. Um, I'm also just trying to figure out what I want to do with this channel moving forward, since trying to do it live every day of the week is too much. So I'm done with that, but I do still want to try to pull up at least twice a week and figure out what I want to do with each of those streams. So gonna start out with this little week ahead format for Mondays and see how that goes, and then figure out something for like later in the week, maybe Tuesday or maybe Thursday or Friday. So let's get right into it. For context, we actually just came off of a Venus Jupiter opposition, and that was a really big deal. I kind of slept on it personally, but it was a big deal in the sense that Venus, the planet in charge of Jupiter in Taurus, Taurus being a Venus ruled sign, is in detriment, basically, where it is right now, as in the sign opposite Taurus in Scorpio. So Venus in Taurus opposed Jupiter in Venus in Scorpio opposed Jupiter in Taurus. I think it was either yesterday or the day before. And I didn't really think about what that transit meant, but I think it did actually look like the status quo combusting a little bit. It looked like a little bit of like things that were previously maybe acceptable in the current context are not actually acceptable anymore. And some of that looks like, I'm using a lot of political rhetoric today, just a heads up, but I think a lot of that looked like, the whole Madison Square Garden Trump rally situation that happened didn't go over very well with the Republican base. Only like niche MAGA people really enjoyed that. And then I think, just regular Republicans were kind of like, y'all took that shit too far. I also have heard a little bit of a shift from Kamala. And when I say little, I mean like the teeny tiniest little shift in how she speaks about Gaza and Palestine, in the way that instead of her leading with like, Israel has a right to defend itself, we're going to support Israel's right to defend itself, Israel, Israel, Israel. She did a little bit more of a like, I want to end the war in Gaza and I want to end the humanitarian crisis that's going on, blah, 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 like actually centered Palestine in her speech. Not that that necessarily says anything, but for the average everyday person listening who isn't thinking that hard about it, that might have felt good to them. So kind of makes it seem like the pressure is getting to her a little bit. And then the other thing that someone just sent me was something about all of the third parties trying to come together a little bit more, to, instead of having like a bunch of different separate green coalitions, they like actually want to come together a little bit more and maybe run a larger campaign. Very annoying that they would do that the day before the election, but better late than never for the days to come, I guess. So that's one thing. On a personal level, something for me, in ways that you can think about this Venus Jupiter opposition for yourself, I've been venturing out a little bit more trying to be more social with people, trying to be less afraid of people, not just like, running out without a mask, but going to my friend's basketball game, trying to meet up with some people one on one, and just being a little bit less hyper vigilant in service of trying to actually bond and commune with other people. So I don't know if that's something you've been experiencing, but be very curious if it was. So I'll take a pause here just to say hello to my lovely chat members. Hi, Amissa. Good to see you. Happy Monday. Yes, just in time for the opening song to do our little jig. I know we got through the whole opening song before the show started. Good stuff. Hey, Sherry. Happy good evening to you. Desiree, hello, hello. Yeah, I know, trying to skip over Tuesday altogether. I've been consuming so much political content. It's like very unlike me because I usually don't prefer to, but I found some streamers and some YouTubers who I actually can stand to listen to. So getting my fill. Hey, Daria. Cool. All right. So let's talk about the Astro of the week because this week is kind of interesting. The first main thing off the top of my head is Mercury enters its retrograde shadow on Thursday, I believe. So, hold on. I'm going to keep that in mind. Mercury enters its retrograde shadow, Venus enters Sagittarius, and we are coming off of the new moon in Libra. Let me see what else is here. Um, so yeah, today actually Sun is trine Saturn. So Sun and Saturn are getting along a little bit. And then, yeah, Venus in Sagittarius is on Wednesday. Moon will be in Capricorn for the beginning of our Mercury retrograde shadow. And then that's pretty much it. Moon will be in Aquarius by Saturday. So let's start with today's trine, since yesterday was the Venus Jupiter opposition. So I'm going to pull this up on here. I have my charts on my iPad just to kind of talk about them off the top of my head. So today and well, mostly today, it looks like we have a stellium, 3 planets in Scorpio, opposite Jupiter and Taurus, and then Mars is still in Cancer, slowing down, preparing to station retrograde, and the Sun is still in Libra, and it's trine, like we said, with Saturn in Aquarius. So trines, these are basically easy flowing aspects. Doesn't necessarily mean the transit itself is easy, but it means that these two planets, they share something in common, the tool or the element that they both use, in this case air. And so they have an easy time communicating with each other. They are quite literally speaking the same language. I think for Sun in Libra, this is a lot about actually like perceiving and seeing and intellectualizing in ways that are magnifying our commonalities, our sameness. So sharing a lot of similar ideas, similar mindsets, um, shared focuses, and trying to find the most common denominator between the way that you think and the way that I think. Um, I think this is like especially the case because Venus, the ruler of the sun right now, is in Scorpio. And we've been kind of talking about this on lives where Venus and Scorpio is about how we feel differently about things that are going on. We are experiencing different threats. We are experiencing different maybe moods or feelings or emotional states. But in order for me to remain authentic and for you to remain authentic in your emotional expression or emotional disposition or physical disposition, whatever it is relating to the body, um, we need to be able to communicate in a way that magnifies the sameness, our shared struggle, versus like us polarizing even further on the differences in our experience. So, um, kind of added piece to that is having Mars in Cancer and the way that I think the shame around experiencing feelings like fear or anxiety or depression or, you know, uh, I don't know, any other kind of physical sensation that is unpopular or even like a belief or, again, threat perception that is unpopular that everyone doesn't agree with. The sky would imply that there's a little bit more receptivity for people to be able to hear. Um, to be able to hear or to be able to identify or to at least understand maybe what somebody else is going through, what somebody else is perceiving, and being able to speak about it in a way that, like I said, is less polarizing. On the flip side, there could also be, well, no, that actually kind of fits. I guess on the flip side, there's dealing with the shame of feeling those feelings and then probably just not saying anything because you're already assuming that someone won't understand or that someone won't agree. And so keeping it to yourself and kind of self erasing and then maybe focusing more on how everybody else feels and catering to that. So it could go either way. But if you wanted to do something different and kind of push the envelope or push the boundary and take the risk of sharing yourself more vulnerably in a way that doesn't make other people defensive and also doesn't put you on the defense, this seems like a good time for that. So that's kind of from the sun's perspective. And then from Saturn's perspective, there's also just like a receptiveness to ideas that are different than yours, or rather, ideas that maybe seem like they aren't possible or aren't realistic or aren't grounded in reality. There's a way that Sun and Libra kind of says there's a way you can speak about things that maybe don't exist or that you can't see or that are maybe being erased by somebody else. There's a way to speak about those things to kind of bring them to life in the minds, in the imaginations of other people, so that maybe some actions can be taken towards that idea or towards that belief or whatever it is. So I think something else happening, at least for the rest of today, before the moon moves into Sagittarius tomorrow, is which is such an omen. But I think something else about this Scorpio stellium ruled by Mars and Cancer is that people probably are feeling a lot of feelings right now. I definitely am. It feels like there's a lot going on. I feel the tendency to want to escape. Like this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I spent a lot of time watching Grey's Anatomy with Samaje, and I've seen the series several times. Um, at least the beginning of the series several times, and the whole series at least once all the way through. And it just felt good to not think about reality for a moment and to kind of live in story. And at the same time, there's a way that stories and storytelling and, media and imagined environments kind of allow you to see things differently in real life. Like they provide perspective, they provide alternative perceptions and perspectives that you otherwise wouldn't have access to or just maybe wouldn't think about. Um, those are reasons why we say like representation matters and stuff like that, even though it still gets commodified and sold back to us. It still matters for people to be exposed to different ideas and different perspectives from people who don't look like them, don't think like them, don't live near them, don't feel the same way that they feel. So it just feels like there's a lot of that kind of energy. I'm actually surprised I'm hearing myself say it. Hey, Denicia. Um, Surprised that I'm hearing myself say it, but it's kind of weird. Like something that I think is really underrated about 2024 and this whole Saturn Jupiter square, which by the way, Saturn is also stationary, basically. It's not direct yet, but it's stationary until I think the 14th or the 15th next week. So the fact that Saturn is basically paused in the sky right now gives it even more power and even more strength to overcome Jupiter. It was already doing that. Jupiter is very much resisting that very thing I just spoke about with Saturn saying like, "Hey, so whenever you're exposed to other people's ideas, you get a glimpse into alternative realities." And like that's a good thing. We need variety of perspectives in order to come to some kind of a consensus about what reality actually is, instead of just one group, one identity, one class, one whatever having all of the power to say what is real and what isn't. So Saturn has the upper hand in this case, like, for the rest of the year. And I think that's something that we're so, like, our nervous systems especially, we're so used to um believing that we're powerless and that things aren't changing. But I think a lot is changing. I think it's just the way that people are speaking about things, they're cautious. Like we're overly, again, the hypervigilance we were talking about with Scorpio. We are cautious of being optimistic or even like just pragmatically forward thinking and optimistic about our circumstances because things have been so bad and are so bad in many ways still. So of course, our way to stay safe is to continue to focus on the things that are still bad. But then that leads us to ignore some of the things that are going well, some of the wins that we are experiencing as a collective. So I don't know. That's probably a benefit of speaking to people, especially unfortunately speaking to people offline, speaking to people directly around you. Hey, HP. Um, Speaking to people who maybe you assume are not on the same page as you and realizing that actually they're tired of this shit too. So maybe we're not as divided as we think. Um, the minutia, I think, of the more specific ways that we differ, they still exist, which is Scorpio saying like, this is still like how I feel, what I believe, and how you feel and what you believe. That's your business. But we can both agree that like this is really stressful. This is really shitty. We don't like either of these, candidates. None of us can afford groceries. Like we're all kind of in the shitter and it's a very uncomfortable experience. And so how can we connect on that? So that's kind of my thought about Sun trine Saturn right now. Let me see what y'all are saying in the chat before I go over to the next thing. I voted on Thursday in Chicago, and to my surprise, that motherfucker was packed. Was getting a little heated by the open mouth coughing. Oh my god, yes. Everybody is a toddler all of a sudden and doesn't remember decent etiquette anymore. God forbid anybody wear a mask, but yeah, a lot of people apparently turned out for open voting. I mean for early voting. So, the place where I went wasn't packed at all. Actually, it's just like right around the corner from my house, but I know a lot of other places people were definitely waiting in line for at least an hour. So, seems to be a sign, if you will. Idaria says showing up to remain connected to people is big. Personally, wish everyone didn't prioritize in person, but I get it. Yeah, I know. And same here. I mean, I spend a lot of time on the phone talking to people too. I do think the in person experience does matter. It is different just in the way that our bodies and nervous systems need connection in that way, proximity in that way. But yeah, COVID makes that very difficult to feel safe doing it. But a good quality mask and proper air ventilation can go a long way. So sometimes it's making a compromise, Libra word, in that sense to say, well, these are the things we can do to make this as safe as possible, while numbers are a little bit more down than usual, and just getting that time in before the holidays and more mutable transits contribute to more spread. So for sure. Sherry says, I cried so much this morning. My air dominant ass does not like this shit. This shit being water transits. Dude, yeah. I was up with a little bit of anxiety last night before I went to bed, and it passed relatively quickly, but I can already feel it being back this morning. And I haven't really had many anxiety struggles lately, but I definitely feel it. It's intense and just ready, ready to find out what are we dealing with moving forward. And I said, hey to Denicia. Hello. Whoops. Everybody is crying. Oh my gosh, good. Cry. Get it out. I know it's a lot. It's very taxing, but better than holding that shit in for sure. Gotta let it out. Um, Drowning in tears. Yes. I know. A lot of self-soothing. I had to do some yoga this morning because I'm just holding so much tension with all of this water, and it's only gonna get more watery. Like, enjoy these last handful of days with the sun in Libra, because once the sun is in Scorpio, Mars is going to feel very loud by then. Okay, next transit. I mean, yeah, the moon is going to be in Sagittarius by later on tonight, Central Time. It'll be about 10:15 that the moon moves into Sagittarius, and then we have a Sag moon for election day. So if that says anything about the significance of this particular election, um, says a lot to me. Hate that. But, the kind of nice thing about that is that at least there's no other mutable in the sky other than the nodes. It is going to be squaring the north and south node in Pisces and Virgo. Uh, so there's that. But no major aspects in terms of, like, larger planets. Everything is pretty much fixed sky right now. So the whole identity, self-acceptance, shame, and, self-preservation type stuff, more the theme right now than mutable, but for the election, yeah, I think, I don't know if we're gonna know by the end of Tuesday who won. We might not. Maybe the cards will tell us that later. I don't know, but, as far as the moon being in a Jupiter ruled sign and Jupiter being in Taurus, it'll probably I don't know, we might find out. I feel like maybe at the latest, we'll know by Thursday, but we really might know by tomorrow or Wednesday. Just this is just literally me based off of nothing but intuition, because I think, I won't even say intuition, but just kind of like a guess, because if Jupiter as a planet is representing Jupiter in a Venus ruled sign, I'll be specific, is representing something about the collective mindset and I don't know, status quo thing type vibe, like kind of where everybody is at on how how the culture is shifting, then I think, yeah, if Jupiter is representing this Jupiter Saturn square, like I spoke about a few minutes ago, is representing how the collective culture is shifting, especially socially, then it'll probably be revealed to us by Wednesday, I would say, who wins, and that it might be Kamala. Because I would be very surprised under this sky if it's Trump. I mean, I know I didn't read Kamala's chart like I said I would, and I don't know. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that later. I just I don't know why I haven't been able to bring myself to read her chart out loud. I've read it personally, but I think I'm just gonna wait before I do that. But her chart seems more favorable for a win, and in that case, like, if you consider, if you consider how big of a deal it would be for a black woman, I know we've been saying this all this time, but, like, it is such a big deal if that happens to show that, like, 1, Trump is so bad that even white people are fed up with him, but then also that people are open to just finding out what it would be like. Like, that's a huge culture shift, regardless of what that lady is doing and represents and all that other kind of stuff. Like, just the optics of that under this fixed sign ass sky says a lot. And there's a lot of potential with that, not necessarily through her specific presidency, but for us as a people. If we can all come together and elect a black woman to be the president of the United States, like, there's a lot of potential in that type of energy that people might be more open to other bigger social and cultural changes than we expect. So again, I don't know. That's just my guess. If Saturn was anywhere else, I probably wouldn't feel that way. But because Saturn is in Aquarius, stationary, has the upper hand with Jupiter and Taurus. Somebody mentioned, Nadine was telling me about some election where I think it was the second W. Bush election that had, yeah, because that would have been like 2003, 2004 when some of you were born, babies. Um, where Jupiter and Saturn were both in Taurus. So that would have been like a square point, way back then compared to now. Uh that would have been the conjunction, and then Jupiter and Saturn moving around as they do. So anyway, if the sky were like that right now, then I would think Trump was going to win. Like Saturn and Jupiter in Taurus. Yeah, there's a reason W won that one, even though I think that was a stolen election. Or it might have been the first one that was a stolen election. I can't remember. I was too young, but you know. But as far as like how the sky is set up now, yeah, if Saturn were anywhere else, I wouldn't think that there was a potential for that lady to win, but it just looks like it's in her favor. So there's that. She's also having her Saturn return right now. She's in a Mercury ruled year instead of a Venus ruled year. So yeah, there's that. So anyway, that's what I mean about how we're so used to kind of expecting and preparing for the worst and like fixating on all the things going wrong that we haven't even realized how many things have shifted maybe in our favor in ways that we can work with. It doesn't look exactly the way that we want, but it's set up in a way that we can work with. Um besides that, we get Venus then in Sagittarius by Wednesday. So yeah, we'll have Venus and the moon in Sagittarius on Wednesday by what time? About 4 o'clock Central time. And Venus will really show us, like, I think if something pops off as a result of the election, hey Jada, if something pops off as a result of the election outcome, this is kind of why I feel like we'll find out by Wednesday, because Venus is going to enter Sagittarius with the moon, both of those ruled by Jupiter and Taurus. Like the moon probably showing us how the public feels, and then Venus coming in to maybe further bring us together on that, but to also bring out some cult mentality. So if there's going to be like a MAGA lash out situation, or a Trump lashing out situation, or extreme Republicans, whoever type people lashing out as a result, and like any other kind of like culty in group out group type behaviors, I think unfortunately I do think that will be something that we contend with over the next month or so while Venus is in Sagittarius. So I would just be prepared for that, like very culty behaviors. And that's like in groups that we don't like and groups that we do like. Like I could see that being like leftists, more left and leftist infighting type stuff. I could see more just polarized group infighting, like I said, MAGA cult people lashing out about election results and stuff like that. Um but then once the sun moves into Scorpio, I don't know. I won't think that far ahead. I'll save that for next week. But that's just kind of my guess. So we'll see what happens. Maybe it won't be that intense, but I think regardless of how the election turns out, like people are going to be a little nutty and a little edgy, maybe some violence. So I would just watch your back, like protect yourself, get your protections up, watch your back, and just like tread lightly, don't. And when I say tread lightly, I mean like, whenever you're driving, don't flip people off, like don't engage in like road rage type shit like that, don't catch an attitude with people in the grocery store, just like situations where you're dealing with strangers and people you don't know in public places and stuff like that. I would just keep it pushing. Your ignore blinders on, just have those on strong. Lean into the Saturn. Ignore, disregard. Yeah, keep your head down, keep it pushing. Just like don't engage. And probably don't go too many places alone, especially if you are in a marginalized group. Just be careful. Um, so that's kind of my thoughts on that, being mindful of the time. And then Thursday is when Mercury is going to reach its pre-shadow degree at 12 degrees Scorpio, and the moon will move into Capricorn. So Mercury retrograde, I'm going to write for my Patreon only post. I already have my notes written for what Mercury retrograde is going to be like for all 12 signs. So if you're not already a Patreon member, please subscribe, hold me accountable so I can have this posted by Thursday. I'm going to work on it at work the next couple of days. It's going to be both some astro and card pulls. I already pulled cards yesterday and wrote down all of them, took pictures and all of that. I just don't know what the interpretations are yet because I have to do this brick by brick. But that post is basically going to be about a dream. Well, I had a dream, and I don't usually work around my dreams, but I'm gonna try it. I had a dream that my dog that passed recently, that I did the live about a few days ago. I had a dream that she got bit by a snake, and I was like trying to tell my parents, "Hey, like my dog, like she's because she was hiding the way that she does when stuff happens to her." I was like, "Hey, she got bit by a snake. Like, was it a venomous snake? Do we know?" And it was like nobody would answer me. And I was kind of freaking out, like, no, like we need to take her to the vet if that was a venomous snake or she's gonna die. And it was just like everyone just kind of was very slow to react or respond and just kind of like dismissed me. And then I woke up thinking about um just the main planets at play for this Mercury retrograde, based on the day I think that it stations retrograde. I think that was what I based this on. And yeah, it was. And so the day Mercury stations retrograde, it's going to be Mercury in Scorpio. Um Mercury in Scorpio ruled by Mars in Cancer, and then Mars in Cancer is going to be ruled by the moon in Virgo. And so that and the dream that I had kind of made me think that, Mercury in Scorpio is trying to speak about the perceived threat, that experience that it's having that feels threatening, trying to speak up about that and share that with people. And as you know, from Mercury and Mercury ruled signs, there's usually this experience of like condescension or being patronized or whatever around Mercury, just people kind of being like, well, you don't know what you're talking about, or just like not really taking Mercury seriously for whatever reason. And so Mercury in Scorpio is kind of that same thing, like especially when Scorpio is already having the experience of being scapegoated and alienated for its body, whether that's how it looks or how it feels. Having Mercury there kind of amplifying that, I think just leads to even more dismissiveness sometimes and scapegoating that leads to, Scorpio having to self isolate and self alienate and just kind of get away from everybody. But because Mars is in Cancer, there's more of this like, well, if I'm uncomfortable, everybody needs to be uncomfortable because something needs to be done about this right now. Like, I'm not willing to wait. I'm not willing to just like sit back and let whatever's happening to me. I want to take control of the situation so I can feel better. And so Mars just kind of being like, well, fuck it, I'll do it myself if no one's going to listen, being motivated by the distress physically. And then the moon in Virgo part is what makes me kind of lean into the condescension, dismissive, like black and white mindset of like, you know, well, on the one hand, it can be the black and white mindset of Scorpio saying like, this feels bad, therefore it is bad. There's no like middle of the road gray area aspect about it. But then there's also the piece of like, no, I have evidence for why I feel this way and why I feel uncomfortable, and we should take this seriously. And then there's also other people being like, well, like, do we really believe that? Do we really think that? Is that really true? Well, I have evidence or experience to say that this is the truth, not that. So a lot of that kind of mutable madness beef going on because there's still going to be planets in Sagittarius talking about what people believe and them being loud and wrong and saying very strongly how they feel in their opinions. But Mercury in Scorpio stationary with Mars and Virgo is, I mean, with the moon in Virgo is kind of like, well, this is the evidence that we have. Like, this is the proof, the tangible information that we're working with for why we feel this way. And then just having to like work it out on the remix, I hope. So we'll see what the outcome of that retrograde is. But those are some themes I would start paying attention to now if you haven't already. Mercury entered Scorpio. Mercury first entered Scorpio on October 29th. So if that's kind of been the vibes for you since then, that's a big part of the retrograde story, especially if you're in a Mercury ruled year. But in general, as far as the pre-shadow and really starting to like pull those stories and those types of conversations up, that'll be as early as Thursday. So, um, my question for that transit is really like responding to your distress rather than just like separating yourself from everyone else and dealing with it alone. Like, how do you respond to your distress in a way that also includes other people? And that's because Mercury is going to make three oppositions to Jupiter in Taurus. So I'll talk about that more later. I don't want to get into the weeds about it right now because I need to think about it some more and actually look at what's happening in the sky with those aspects. But yeah, something to keep in mind. And the last thing, the last transit of the week is going to be the moon in Aquarius, and that's on Saturday night. Um, is that right? Saturday night? No, Saturday morning. Is that right? Yeah, Saturday morning. Um, oh, so Sunshine Saturn is happening now. I thought that was later today. I forget that my phone is in 24-hour time. But yeah, moon will be in Aquarius Saturday morning. So moon conjunct Saturn again, and that'll be after a lot of this election aftermath as well. So by then, what does that chart look like? Moon Saturn conjunctions have been really they've been really uncomfortable in the way that I think they've been bringing up a lot of grief. I think Cancer transits have been bringing up a lot of grief too, just because we have so much repressed grief at this point. And, as long as Mars is in Cancer, all of the moon transits are going to be kind of shaped by, or no, that's flipped. Sorry. As long as Mars is in Cancer, the moon is going to alter the flavor of Mars, basically, how Mars is doing its Cancer thing. So, I had no notes for this live, by the way. This is all off the top of my head. So, I feel like I don't know how I feel. Aquarius and Cancer have a weird relationship in that Aquarius is not trying to be in its body, but then Cancer can't help to be in its body and would prefer to be there. The moon would prefer to be in its home sign in Cancer. So whenever it can't and it has to be in a Saturn ruled sign with Saturn, I think there's a little bit of this feeling of kind of being a fish on land and just like trying to breathe, but there's no it's weird. Oh, this is weird imagery, but it's like, fish are used to breathing underwater the way that they breathe underwater. They get oxygen from water. So when you're on land, you can't take in oxygen the same way. So you're breathing, you're like trying to take in air. It's like the opposite of drowning. It's weird, right? Like for us, if we were to try to breathe underwater, we would drown. Your lungs fill with water and then you just, but it's the opposite for fish out of water. It's huffing and puffing and not getting any relief. What does that mean? Why am I saying that right now? Chat, help me out. What is this about? No, I'm kidding. Uh Inverted response. Yeah. It's like the last is that the last little push of air? Being mindful of the time. I'm almost at my limit. I don't know if I'll have time for cards today. Yeah, that'll be the last bit of air that we get until the moon is in Gemini, and then we'll be underwater for a few days. So I don't know. Um, yeah, because the sun is gonna enter Scorpio by the 16th, and we don't have the moon in anything. So there's something about that drowning on dry land feeling come Saturday. And I'm gonna just leave it at that, honestly. I don't know what that means Maybe I'll come back around and tell y'all next week, or you can tell me how that manifested for you. I don't know what that means or why that came up, but uh that's interesting. But if I were to give a positive interpretation for that, there's also like the self-determination aspect in this like shared collective imagination experience. Like, I don't know, maybe I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna just leave it. I'm gonna just leave it and not try to figure it out right now for the sake of time. I want to think about that some more because that moon, I will say that moon does feel like a significant moon post election. Um, I do think it'll be a significant moon just in terms of like where everybody is at with kind of the new reality being ushered in at that point. You know, again, regardless of how the election turns out, we'll be in a new space by then to kind of like adjust maybe physiologically or orient ourselves differently physiologically to real time, to the reality of our current circumstances, and just seeing how that lands for all of us. Like, instead of maybe being stuck in the emotional experience of it, there is a little bit of, I feel like I should feel a certain way, but this is just kind of where I'm at right now. So I don't know. Let me see what y'all are saying in the chat. Because I know I said I wasn't going to interpret it, but then I just interpreted it a little bit. So whatever. Thank you, thank you. The death cults, yes. Yeah, those people are scary right now. They definitely are preparing. Like the Republican MAGA cult people are definitely preparing for really wild responses regardless. Like they kind of want some pandemonium moving forward. So that's why I say like protect your neck just in case. Like, yeah, if you can stay in the house, other than the things that you have to do that, and just don't start no stuff, won't be no stuff. Thank you, Denicia. Yay. Gonna be excited to see you. I have like 70 something posts in my Patreon as well. So lots of astro information in there, lots of coaching info here and there as well, too. Just, my thoughts, but on words or in words, and then some also old videos too. So lots of things to look into. It's a very low subscription fee, either $3 or $5. And you also get a lifetime discount to my check-in readings as well. Or it might be any of my readings, but I'm pretty sure it might be any of my readings. I don't know. But go in there, type in like discount code or whatever, and you'll be able to find your lifetime membership discount for a reading. We've been disregarding a lot of evidence. Yeah. Scorpio has not been having a good time. Shout out to all my Scorpio hoes. Like, it's a rough time out here for us. Sherry says, I have Aqua Moon and the Saturn transit has been a lot for me. I've been grieving so many things in my life, for sure. I have that conjunction in my solar return, and it has not been a fun time. But it did lead to me moving into a new apartment that actually fits me and reflects who I am. It's in the fourth house of my solar return. So um, that's where I'm like, there are some benefits to having that level of like detachment and space from your emotional self, in the sense that it can empower you to make things a reflection of who you are and how you feel. So maybe there's some of that too. Oh, thank you, Robin. Thanks for joining. Happy to have you here. HP says, I just held a grief space and that phrasing came up. Oh, so I'd be mindful of what you're holding on to or what you're holding and pay attention for things to pop up that you didn't realize you were grieving. Because grief overtakes and can feel like you're drowning when you're learning how to be a container around it. Oh, I feel like that's excellent. Oh, that gave me the little chill thingies. I felt it up the side of my head. So yeah, that's a really good one. So just to say that again, this was in response to me talking about the Moon Saturn conjunction in Aquarius while Mars is in Cancer. HP said, be mindful of what you're holding and pay attention for things to pop up that you didn't realize that you were grieving. because grief can overtake you and make you feel like you're drowning when you're learning how to be a container for it. Totally. I think that's a lesson that a lot of times we can get from Capricorn as well. I mean, we'll have the moon will be in Capricorn. That's actually a good point because I kind of glazed over moon in Capricorn, like Thursday or Friday through Thursday through Saturday, moon in Capricorn. That'll be opposite Mars. And I think this, what you're saying, is relevant for that transit too. So, I guess as the grief comes up, probably with the moon in Capricorn transit, then um, by the time we get to moon in Aquarius, there's probably more language we can have to speak on the experience that we're having physically and emotionally, and how that can provide some space from everything that you're carrying in a way to like make it an object outside of you, and to talk through it. So for it to still be present in the room, but maybe not totally overtaking you. But if you continue to ignore it, which is the other side of Saturn, continue to ignore it and dismiss it, it'll continue to live in your body. So um, it'll continue to live in your body, and then you'll be running around wondering why you still feel anxious, why you still feel heavy, depressed, weighed down, all that kind of stuff. Speak about it, get it out of your head so it's not carrying you down. And cover your head. Don't wear red or black if you can help it. No loud colors on your head either. Yes, thank you. Thank you from the spiritualists. I said the same thing. Don't argue with nobody in the car, in the store. Just don't. I don't know if you were in here when I said that, but I literally said the same thing. Don't argue with nobody in the car, in the store, whatever. Just don't argue. Yes, become a member on today. And if you haven't already liked the video on YouTube, like the video so YouTube knows I'm cool. And so people want to subscribe, like and subscribe. Thank you, thank you. True, I did come out as A-spec while this transit was happening, so I guess it's also a good thing. Thank you, Saturn. Praise Saturn. On today, Ashe, amen. Shout out to you, Sherry. Yeah, HP ate that. Last thing, pay attention to where you feel it in your body and use your ancestral practices to help remedy it in your body. Absolutely. Somatic practices for sure. Yeah, that's the other thing. Locating the sensation in your body and being able to name feelings and sensations is very regulating as well. I know it sounds like kind of ridiculous, but sometimes it's helpful to be able to name that and to have someone reflect back to you like, "Oh, you're feeling anxious? Oh, you're feeling this, feeling that." What does that sensation feel like for you? How can I support you moving through that sensation? Always remembering to breathe, of course, or any other self-soothing, self-regulating, self-soothing, self-regulating practices that you might have. Olivia says, "Thank you for reminding us to like." I always forget that. Yes, please press that little like button on the channel. How much time do we have? Well, we only have 10 minutes left. I know that I can't read cards in 10 minutes and I have to leave for work on time. So we'll just stay with the astro interpretation, and then you'll get plenty of cards in your horoscope, your Mercury retrograde forecast for your rising sign. So we'll just do that instead. No cards today. Um, I hope that you all have a wonderful week. I hope that I hope you all have a wonderful week. I hope that you are somewhere that you can feel as safe as you can. I hope that you all drink water and nourish yourself properly. Go for silly little walks. In Well, I know we said don't go nowhere if you don't have to, but movement is also helpful. Maybe, I don't know, somewhere where it feels safe to have some kind of a movement practice, do that as well. And just take care of yourselves. I'm going to try to come back on Thursday or Friday, and I'll let y'all know on the socials ahead of time. Maybe we'll do cards then, or I'll do minis or something like that. I don't know. Figure out what I'll do for my midweek, end of the week little uh live chat. But thank you so much for being here today and for tuning in. Thank you so much. to my friend. I'm very tired. um, but yes, I love you guys, and I will see you very soon. I will see you around on the internets. Protect your spirit, protect your mind, protect your body. Be well. Toodaloo, cue the outro music. Bow, 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 bow.